Hello, welcome back to Uncle Matt's Cookery Lessons. Brisket cottage pie. So I've got a nice big chunk of brisket from my supermarket. Sorry, it wasn't my local butcher today. And the first time I made cottage pie with brisket, that was the day I decided never to use mince again. And if you do this, I think you'll agree with me. They can't compare. I've removed just the smallest amount of the sinew that I thought was going to not be very nice, but I've decided to leave on the fat. You can always trim that off after you take the beef out later. And yes, that's an OXO cube. OXO, I'm available for sponsorship if you want to contact me. I'm prepared to sell out. But in all honesty, you won't notice the difference. This is all about the brisket. You could put some red wine, you could put beer in there, by all means do. I want to stick closely to sort of more a traditional British dish here, so I'm not using alcohol. What I want to do is brown brisket. That is my Dutch oven. I love that thing, I just bought it recently, although it might be a bit small. Cast iron, it retains a lot of heat, but I still wanted to not put all the meat in one go, just in case it knocked the heat out of the pan, and then you're not going to brown, you're just going to steam. But you can tell by the sound of sizzle there, it's definitely hot. So there'll be this took me about 10 minutes, this process of seasoning, turning and browning. Take your time over this. Close the door to the rest of the house because it's going to set your fire alarm off and the rest of the house is going to smell a bit. Okay, beautifully browned on all sides. That stuff at the bottom of the pan, that is gold dust. It's also called a fond. I'm going to use the mirepoix vegetables to deglaze that. I'm doing 2 lots of mirepoix for this, one to make the stock and one to finish off the dish later on. That's onion, celery, leek, carrots, put some garlic in there, put some hardy woody herbs like rosemary, thyme, bay leaf, bit of tomato puree. So you can nestle the beef back on top. Cover this with stock. You need a tight fitting lid. If you're going to do this in a tray, you're going to have to use some tin foil and really squeeze it around the edges of the tray. There you go. Tight fitting lid in the oven, 170 degrees centigrade. I'll put the conversion of Fahrenheit on the screen. At least 3 hours. This took between 3 and 4 hours. I checked it about every hour or so to make sure it wasn't boiling dry or anything, but it wasn't. That is almost falling apart. That is just at the point I wanted to get it out. I'm going to demonstrate to you here how tender it is. Oh, I say, that is lovely. So just leave that on the side. Like I said, I've got 2 lots of vegetables. I think these vegetables have done their job. You don't have to change the veg halfway through. You could just carry on. It would be fine. But I wanted also a slightly fresh vegetable flavour going through mine. So I'm straining it. I do recommend getting one of these conical strainers or chinois. They're hard, they're tough, so you can do what I'm doing here. You can really sort of squish that about. If you've got a normal sieve, you might break it, that's all. So just wipe the pan out, bit of oil, the fresh mirepoix veg going in. I like to season as I go, so we're going to taste this before we finish it. And there goes your stock. Right, while that's simmering away, boiling like a nutter as it was there, I'm going to chop up the beef. Do this however you want. I'm just showing you here, brisket in particular has a very pronounced grain. It's always good to cut against the grain. It won't make that much difference in this because it's going to break up again when it goes in. But I wanted some sort of reasonable size pieces. So that's that done. Like I said earlier, when you're checking this, if the liquid evaporates a bit, just add water to this. Don't worry about more stock. It doesn't matter. You've got all the flavour in the world in there. So there you go. Mine was a bit dry, I thought. So a glass of water went in. That's optional, some fresh parsley there. Put it towards the end of the cooking, it will lose its flavour if you put it in too early. Now, meanwhile, I've had some potatoes peeled and boiling away to make mash. I haven't shown you that because I'm assuming you don't need me to show you how to make mashed potatoes. Final taste and season, and I thought it was a bit wet, a bit loose. So yes, more sacrilege. Those were gravy granules, and I don't care what anyone thinks. They're really good for just thickening a sauce ever so slightly. You could use corn flour. That just needs just a minute or so to tick away whilst the gravy granules do their business and thicken that gravy up. Here is the mash, and that was a great big lump of butter to make it a lot better. To be honest with you, I was tempted to use more. I was talked out of it by the missus. I decided to put some extra flavour. That is Dijon mustard. Those were chives. And also when I season my mash, I was trained into me at an early age to use ground white pepper because it doesn't colour it. It'd be pointless in this one because of all the other stuff in there, but it's just stuck with me. And salt, obviously. I'm satisfied the mash is ready. Now you could transfer your braise into a nice oven dish and you could pipe this mashed potatoes on top with a star nozzle. You could do all sorts of things with it. I just really fancied doing it in the Dutch oven. So very rustically, I'm plonking, that's the term I'm using for this, the mash on top. Once all that mash has been plonked, past tense, I don't want to mess around with it too much because the liquid is quite liquid underneath and it will just sort of mix in. I want it to sit on top and I don't care if bits bubble through and sort of caramelise on top of the mash. In fact, I want that to happen. This is definitely not a restaurant dish. This is comfort food at its peak. And that is stunning. That had about 35 to 40 minutes in a hot oven, around about 200 degrees centigrade. And it didn't last long, trust me. Gorgeous. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this episode of Uncle Matt's Cookery Lessons. Please leave me any comments below and please check me out on the next episode of Uncle Matt's Cookery Lessons and also subscribe, thumbs up. Bye.